What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about some changes that I believe Palworld would really benefit from that will help out all of the players for this game here. Talking about my top 10 that I have here, with some having those little minor subcategories. So we're going to talk about a lot in this video, and y'all will have to let me know if you guys like these changes and anything you guys want to see as well. So first off, for these changes, mount specific slot where we can attack while mounted, but as soon as we are on that mount, it goes away. So instead of having a 6 PAL, whichever it will fit there, we have almost a PAL specific that goes in that slot for mounts only. Now you can use this as well, switch it on and off with your party. So if you want to use like a Jetragon and then like a Fenelope, you can switch them between your party and your mount, but while you are on it, you can use their attacks as well as your weapons. But as soon as you get off of it, it'll also disappear back into its PAL sphere and kind of just be out of the battle, and you have to throw out one of your other battles that are actually in your party. I think that would be a pretty cool little dynamic to have specifically for those mounted PALs. Number 2 on this list, now these aren't in any specific order, just kind of was off the top of my head the things that I want to see the most. So 2 right here is when we are in our storage box, whether it be for our PAL box, our item, our food, anything like that, we should be able to select all or multiple in all of these to be able to move them around and delete them all at once. So instead of having to go through and move like all of your brick that you have in a certain storage box to your inventory so you can move it around bases, you can just select all of it at once and move it instead of having to select single stacks. The same kind of thing for the PAL box. Instead of having to individually add PALs to your bases or move them from certain pages one by one back and forth, you could select a whole row or a whole page and move it left or right. That would be a very beneficial addition for that quality of life for the players. You could use this for deleting items as well, like in your inventory. Instead of having to do them singular one at a time, you can select all of them, delete them, they'll be gone for good. Now, as kind of a little subset of this, I think it would be nice for some of those things to have sliders as well, more in the aspect of having it for like your mill, crusher, refiner, oven. So instead of only going by 1 or 10 or going all the way up to max, you could have a little slider on it so you can adjust exactly how much you want to take out little things like that. For the oven and refined materials would be a great addition, kind of in the same realm as that number 2 point. Number 3 on this list is assign or prioritize work suitabilities to certain PALs. So something like a Blazamut that has 4 in mining and 3 in kindling, you'll be able to specify if you want it to do both or only one of those, which would make it so much easier and make the bases way more effective with having certain PALs out. Yes, it's nice to have PALs that have both, but when you are getting PALs that are trying to do 3 or 4 things depending on your base setup, it can get a little lackluster because they're not 100% doing them in the order that you want them to, especially if it's like transporting stuff around and you got PALs specifically for that. You could just take that out of the equation totally. So strictly only do a certain few things on the base. It would just be really nice to have those PALs work slightly more efficiently with this. Number 4 would be a really cool thing to have, not only for our builds but also for things like our armor and our weapons, from wood to stone to metal, or like from cloth to that metal to PAL metal. Instead of breaking it down or having to craft something new, well, like your armor, you could just upgrade it with the materials that it would take to craft it. Yes, you would lose some of the materials materials that you would have instead of like the building. When you break it down from wood to stone, you get that wood back. When you upgrade it to stone, you will lose that little bit of wood that you made the building out of. But I think that is a good trade-off, because when it comes to your weapons and your armor, you're basically already doing that with having to craft a stone axe and then a metal axe. You could just upgrade it and it would be the same amount of materials and you wouldn't be losing anything. I think that would just save a lot of space. I know you can just sell some of this stuff once you craft a higher level, but I think being able to upgrade, or even when you can combine two different sets to make like the schematics upgrade as well, from gray to green to blue all the way up to gold. Maybe not gold because that is special like legendary drops, but something like that as well would be a fun little addition. Now, number 5 on our list is for our flying pals. We should be able to, just like our glider, be able to press a button to kind of fall straight down. I know we can like get off of our pal, but we can't get back on it. We just have to glide after that. If we could get off of our pal and then back on it mid-air, that would also be a pretty cool addition. But having something like how we float up and then slowly float down, if we could just cancel it, like when we are out of stamina, where we could just fall straight down, like when we are on our glider, we just cancel it, we fall straight down and then can pull the glider back out. That would be a great quality of life change for the flyers, because it does take a long time to fall, or I should say use the float button to come all the way back down. So I find myself using the running out of stamina a lot so I can fall to the ground a lot quicker. So if we had a button that just canceled the flying act, that would be super sweet. Number 6 is a pretty interesting thought that I had because of the grind that I was going for with Alpha Pals, trying to get some of those schematics that they drop. If we were able to collect, or select I should say, all the Alpha Pals or Pals in general that we want to release by using the interesting release method that Palworld has, you could use something like a little kitchen, if you will, and a butcher block to take all of these pals to, and where it'll just be an area where even a pal or something like that could be assigned with handiwork, and it will just automatically use these to release all of those pals, and all of the items will be stored at that kitchen station, kind of like it is when you are just crafting on those production line or in the oven. It would be a similar thing, but it would be all of those pal drops that you would get, schematics, the ancient civilization parts, all of those nice jewels that you can sell would just be all in one spot instead of having to do it single at a time. A kind of a similar thing to number 2 with being able to select multiple things, but this would be for releasing them. Number 7 would be a cool thing that I just asked for in a lot of my video games, but I think having a dynamic weather system, I know it would be a lot to ask for this kind of game at the moment, but I think having that dynamic weather system would be super sweet, where each kind of a dynamic weather event has an effect. So if it's raining, your water pals do more, but your fire pals do less. If you're in a sandstorm in the desert, kind of the same thing. Your ground pals will be a little bit stronger over there. If you're fighting at night, those dark pals will be a little bit stronger. If you're in the tundra in the ice region, your pals in the ice storm, when they're ice, are going to be a little bit better. Dragon's going to be a little bit less. So I think that'd be a cool little addition to the fighting and combat side dynamic weather for this game. Number 8 on my list is something that I have thought about since the start of this game, is pals could take items out of the oven, refiner, crusher, mill, and put them into the chest or the food basket, just kind of like how they do with the farming aspect when you are harvesting wheat, tomatoes, lettuce. They could go over to the mill, take out all of that wheat, put it into a food basket or something similar, how like when they're carrying blocks around, or stones I should say, and putting them into our storage units. They could do the exact same thing with our food and with the refiner, with our ignits, as well as anything that we made with our cakes, and assign them to where they have to go instead of you specifically, because that kind of does halt the process a little bit for crafting with the food and all of that, because it does start to get backed up if you're on a dedicated server for sure. But even when you just let your gameplay letting things run and you have an efficient base, that stuff will start to get stacked up fast. So being able to have your pals take it in and out of those refiners, ovens, crushers, stuff like that would be super clutch. Number 9 on this list is a nice quality of life thing in my opinion. When you're at your pal box, you should be able to see what pals are at the other bases as well that are out working, so you can kind of mix and match and be able to move them in and out a little bit easier instead of having to put pals from a certain base into your pal box, fly all the way over, fast teleport to your other base, take them back out of that pal box, put them into that base's workspace. If there was an area where you could just flip from left to right on the different bases that you have inside of your pal box, that would make it so much easier to move them in and out. Kind of on the same aspect of that, when we are applying medicine or food to our pals, I think we should be able to apply it to pals that are in our box or working, instead of having to take them out and put them into our party to be able to actually have to heal them with some of that medicine or give them food. That would be a lot of less work for the players to go in, especially in the beginning game, when it does seem to happen more when you have less of the food that you are cooking. That helps with the sanity and stuff, so the pals are getting hurt a lot more often. Just being able to use the medicine in a mass way inside of your pal box, or even select the amount of pals you want to apply it to, would be a big quality of life change for that little aspect of the game. And last but not least right here, these are just little UI changes that I think would be super helpful and just kind of clean up the look of the map, etc. So first off for this, we got smaller check marks on those alpha pals. So this would just mean, instead of that big old check mark that we have covering the face of the alpha pal, it would be just kind of like up in the upper right hand corner, something like that, showing that you completed it, but still allowing the player to see what alpha pal is underneath that a little bit easier. With those alpha pals as well, instead of having to travel to them to see if they respawned or that timer that they have is counting down to 0, it'll just be on that same map section where the alpha check marks are. It would just be a little timer at the bottom of those showing that it is unavailable, etc. Or it could just be like a matter of having it grayed out, or having it turn into that light color that it is normally when it is available, and having it grayed out once it's beat. Another little UI change, I think PAL deck having a search or filter would be super nice, so you could filter between the different types that we have, things like that, or actually type in what PAL you are looking for. Just make it a little bit easier than having to scroll up and down as often as we do. Kind of on the same page as that with the PAL deck search and filter, we have our building menu being a little bit more fluid. So instead of having to go through all of those different 10 bars at the top with a wheel inside of each one, picking what we are building, especially with the walls and structures and stuff like that, I think that could just use a little bit more of a fluid picking menu, something like that, where it is just a little bit easier to use in my opinion. it is just kind of a lot on the screen. It is easy to use, I should say, but it is just a lot going on at once. The last little thing that I think would be a great thing for saving space would be a keyring or like a PAL sphere case. So kind of like how our key items go into a separate page with our saddles, stuff like that, we would have a keyring and a PAL sphere case that would just take up one slot each, and all of those 3 different keys would be all put inside of the keyring, so you could save space. Same with the PAL spheres. So instead of when you're around doing your search and adventuring and you find a bunch of chests, etc., you start getting a bunch of useless PAL spheres that you have already passed up and you might want to sell in the future if you're that higher level, but they could all go into that PAL sphere case, which would hold them and save a lot of space, especially like I said, when you're out exploring and trying to get some of those higher end game content stuff with the dungeons, getting your nice schematics, farming some of those alpha pals for those schematics and ancient civilization parts, or just going out collecting eggs, whatever it may be. It would just save a lot of room. So that was a good little chunk of things that I think would improve the Palworld game by a lot. Now, I'm not sure what the devs have planned, but a lot of the updates do look like they got a lot of good things coming out with the roadmap. We got our first raid coming out here with Bellanora coming as a new PAL, so a lot of things on the horizon. I think a lot of these will be addressed, maybe not some of the as specific things that I talked about like dynamic weather, but hopefully things like selecting multiple PALs at once, maybe that big butcher block kitchen area where we could release, if you will, multiple PALs at once so you don't have to do it all at once. That would be great little changes in my personal opinion. So let me know what you guys think about these changes, if you guys have any other ideas. But again, truly appreciate all you guys coming back to the channel. If you don't want to miss out on this kind of content for Palworld updates, guides, whatever it may be, don't be afraid to hit that like and subscribe button, hit that bell as well so you get those notifications. But again, appreciate all you guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.